Anita, I would kindly ask you to share with us the work of the working group of the Alliance. But first of all, I wanted to kindly ask you to let me know which PowerPoint presentation it is.
Warsaw.
Warsaw 2. Thank you very much. Okay.
Just go okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to try and do is talk about the work of Working Group 4 that was about recognition. I'm going to talk about the policy recommendations and, if we have time, a bit about some of the recognition tools that we explored and worked upon. The membership of the group came from a range of different European networks, and I would like to thank all those members of that group for their hard work, input and fun we've had, and also to Rosemary, my co-chair. And I would like you all to stand up.
Again.
No, not you, the working group. So thank you very much to all of you. These are the objectives that the working group was set. I would say the first two, on reflection, were extremely challenging considering the number of tools that are around. And I think the recommendations you can read in PAVE. The process described here, we actually only had 4 meetings to really do work together. And that consisted of a day and a half. So we packed a lot of work into that small time, as did all the other working groups. But also in between time we did a bit of work, and some people attended other events. We talked about it quite a lot, and hopefully we've developed some good recommendations. So we had a series of stakeholders to address, but there were some common themes to all stakeholders. And the first was about encouraging the continuation of gathering of good practice. We looked at the Salto Youth web-based tool, where there is an extremely good selection of good practice examples, publications around youth. And I think this would be something that we'd like to see around volunteering. And we also explored the idea of a volunteering card, which I'm sure will interest Bob, as a possibility of giving recognition to volunteering. So it seems like that some of the things that we are interested in have been maybe set as examples by the youth sector. With the European institutions, it was interesting. John MacDonald yesterday at the Alliance meeting very clearly said that volunteering was a national competence and not something for EU policy. Yet there are many, many policies that touch volunteering and volunteering organisations that are set at EU levels. I think, as Karine has quite well described, the lifelong learning programme is a good example. And many of us were here last week in Warsaw, at a hotel down the road, talking about how volunteering and the Grundtvig programme have worked. And it was a good celebration of all the work that has been funded by Grundtvig, focusing on volunteering. And with the new changes coming in 2013, we would urge the European Commission to ensure they continue that support of volunteering through the lifelong learning programme. I would also say, in reflection some of the things you said, is to get the EU to encourage some of the member states to recognise volunteering organisations as learning organisations. I've come across personally some of the partners that I work with in Europe who really struggle to be recognised as organisations that can deliver learning and accreditation because they're not academic institutions. So I think this is a role that the EU could play in supporting and encouraging the member states to do that. The other area is that to ensure some of these processes are not too much of an administrative burden on some of the smaller volunteering organisations. At member state level, we felt that there was a strong need for the member states to promote the role of volunteering, partly in the education system of helping young people, students at school, to understand the role of volunteering, both in making them become active citizens, as being part of society, and also about learning about life and exploring life. The mobility is a good example of how learning and volunteering can open up a new world for many people. Cooperation between education establishments and volunteering organisations to help this process of accreditation and validation. We felt there was a need to have stronger relationships between the two sets of sectors. Social partners. Some of us struggle to identify what social partners are. Social partners are basically trade unions and employers in all sectors, whether that's the business sector, government sector, voluntary sector. There's many people that are employed. They are an important part of volunteering and as stakeholders in the volunteering dialogue. They have an important part in recognising the impacts of volunteering, the skills, the competencies gained by people that volunteer, and spreading that through employers. The Alliance has identified this in quite a few ways, and there was a specific working group on employee volunteering who produced quite a lot of good recommendations in PAVE, so I would encourage you to read that. And finally, civil society, the NGOs ourselves. We as volunteering organisations need to take responsibility in supporting and recognising volunteers, their work and their efforts, to recognise the skills and competencies they gain, and to find ways of challenging them and helping them grow and develop and appreciate them. Recognition is an important motivation for many volunteers, and we need to find more challenging things for volunteers to go on to do. And we need to ensure that the work of volunteers is recognised by wider society by promoting the work of volunteers, and that is our responsibility to take that on. So now I'd like to look at some of the work we did on recognition tools. When we started to explore this area, we found a plethora of different recognition tools, some good, some bad. Volunteering plays a vital role in society in building communities and developing civil society and contributing to the economy. And the vital role that volunteers perform needs to be better recognised by society and by the volunteering organisations, and most importantly, by the volunteers themselves. Okay. So we worked through a range of tools and recommendations that we thought were the good practice. We decided not to recommend any one specific tool, but we produced, based on some of the work done by Scouting Netherlands, some guidelines on recognising the most appropriate and the good tools of recognition. And I found this little leaflet, a very impressive little leaflet about recognition of the skills and competencies you gain. One side for the volunteer, one side for the volunteering organisation. And it can be that simple. It's a really useful little document. And finally, I think Karina's explained a lot about vocational skills and how volunteers can gain vocational skills and competencies. The EQF, in theory, is a very good and flexible tool to do that, but I think there is still some way to go in some countries about how it can be a flexible and useful tool and could be ideal for volunteers to build their portfolio of experiences. And here we have some examples of how volunteer organisations can help recognise volunteers' activities. Sometimes the answer is quite simple, but we just need to recognise that. And then finally, the group came up with some top tips of thanking volunteers for the year. And part of it's about saying thank you. It could be giving people more challenges. It could be giving somebody a birthday card. Again, very simple. And finally, when I was looking for a quote around recognition, I surprisingly found this quote from an interesting person who was not known for his sensitivity, but I thought it was rather a nice quote about recognition and volunteering. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita, and also thank you very much to the working group members who have been contributing to this work. And I also would like to thank Rosemary, who is a co-chair and who is a rapporteur for this session as well. So she is writing everything down so that we have a lasting legacy also of this session and can read back after 2011.